Well, hello there. My name is Ian, and welcome to my YouTube channel. So today I have gathered a cast of panelists here to discuss the 1975 Shrine Auditorium performance of The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, the epic Genesis rock opera. So joining me today is music educator and drummer, band leader, band member, Adam Dean. Sometimes band leader, sometimes band member. But Adam, I wanted to say, was the impetus for this whole discussion here, because I did have a number of subscribers reach out and say, why didn't you talk about the Shrine Auditorium show? And Adam reached out to me via email and was like, I've been cataloging all of these differences. Let's do a video on this. So if you enjoy this, thank Adam. This was his idea.
You're welcome.
So in addition to Adam, we have the Swedish prog nerd, Pontus, returning to the panel. You may remember him from that great Cardiacs video that I think I got some of my most lovely comments ever on. So if there's any overlap between the Cardiacs fan base and the Genesis fan base, which I'm sure there is, you'll remember Pontus. And of course, Larry Shore was also on that video. You may remember Larry additionally from the video that we did talking about his photography. Larry photographed many of the 70s greats throughout that time period, and then a lot of early 80s greats as well. So we get to see, and I'll just put up Larry's website right here, My Picks Rock. We get to see Genesis. We get to see some Peter Gabriel solo stuff. He's seen a lot of different shows, including the Lamb Lies Down on Broadway tour. And Larry saw and photographed the show 2 days before that. So Larry, you want to talk a little bit about that show that you saw?
Yes, it was a pretty amazing show. It was a multimedia experience. We had just gotten the album not too long before that, but we had heard it. It wasn't like we were hearing it for the first time when they were playing it, which was the case in a lot of the shows that they did earlier than ours. So we were familiar with the music and all that. Unfortunately, I did not get seats as close to the front as I would have liked. So my pictures were not what I would have wanted them to be. They're more good for historical purposes than as pieces of art or anything like that. But
fascinating quality.
Yeah, they're okay. They're okay, but I like stuff that's a lot closer up. I like having basically like one person in a picture for the most part.
Yeah.
Things with a whole stage with a lot of people on it is not really my style of photography that much for concert stuff. But it was really good. The seats were fine as far as sound goes. The sound was excellent, as it usually always was at Berkeley Community Theater. And as I say, it was multimedia. We had the slide things that were going on behind the stage. We had Peter in his costumes and running around and doing all of that. And being in the 1970s in San Francisco Bay Area, especially people in the music business, there was a pretty voluminous, heroic drug intake going on among most of the people who were in attendance, and most of the people who I knew for that matter. And what we kind of all agreed on after the show was whatever state you were in when you entered, you left in the next higher state up.
Nice.
That's cool. That's cool.
A great way to put it.
These photos are black and white. Do you remember the lighting? Was it the lighting of the place? Was it lots of colors? Was it, you said slides?
Yeah.
Did they use reds
black and white? No, I do not have any idea what the colors were. And being a red-green colorblind person anyway, I couldn't description of what they were if I did remember what they were. Yeah. I've had a brilliant blue, and it was purple, and
I see.
well, super. So we'll it'll be great to have your perspective on the historical aspect of these shows. So we were talking a little bit about how we're going to sort of structure this conversation, and I'd like to first start with talking about like our appreciation of the Lamb album, but we can also talk a little bit about how this Shrine Auditorium performance, which has been, as we were discussing, issued a couple of times, most recently on this box set, which is the 50th anniversary edition of The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. But as we get sort of deeper into the video, I think we're going to talk about some major differences. And we're going to go back to the original version of this, which was released in '98. The originally, Genesis sanctioned version released in '98. We're going to talk a little bit about the 2008 version and sort of what the new version gets right and maybe what it gets wrong. But also another thing that's kind of interest is that we do have the broadcast version, which, as you guys were explaining, was like a King Biscuit Flower Hour thing. And kind of the elephant in the room here is that in 1998, Peter Gabriel and Steve Hackett went back and re-recorded a lot of their parts. And we'll get into that as we go along. But first, let's just talk about this in a general sense. So, Adam, I'll start with you, and we'll kind of maybe move on to Larry after that, and then Pontus. But perhaps you can tell us how you feel about the Shrine performance as compared to other performances of that era.
Yeah, well, the Shrine is kind of it is very unique in the sense that, obviously there's the version that we know has a lot of the overdubs with Peter and Steve. Excuse me. And there's actually not that many overdubs with Steve, but where he did put it in is quite significant. And I think they made, with the Shrine, having, all of us having heard the King Biscuit version, the undoctored version, as it were, I think they made it better, actually, because, if they had released the undoctored version, I think it'd be interesting, but I'm not sure you'd want to listen to it over and over again. And when this came out in '98, I knew there were overdubs and everything, but I loved the way it sounded in '98. The bass was so huge, and the drums were great, of course. And that was hawk heaven for me. I loved it. And so I listened to it repeatedly. And with this latest box set version, I noticed a lot of the overdubs are kept, although some original parts are back in there, which the biggest one that I was surprised with was Steve's solo on the Lamia, overdubbed on the archive in '98, but on this box set version, it's the original. And that really surprised me. And at first I was kind of like, I prefer the overdub, and now I kind of dig the original a little bit. So it kind of goes both ways. Forgive me if I ventured off. I'm not sure if I answered your question, but I could talk about this all day.
Yeah. Well, I think I was mostly interested in how does this performance compare to others, because when I was listening to it, I thought that the performance started off a little bit tentative, like maybe under tempo, but then by the time we get to In the Cage, things are a little bit fiery. And there's a number of songs on this that I would even say are better than the studio version. I would say that In the Colony of Slippermen is one that's better than the studio version.
I think so too.
Definitely The Waiting Room is. But Riding the Scree is extremely impressive. And I made copious notes because I'm old-fashioned.
That's cool.
And, I'm rejecting modernity and all digital communication, except for this, of course.
Right.
But I noticed that when you were talking about sound, that Mike Rutherford's bass is extremely present. As it should be, yeah, especially like on the opening cut. You can hear that growl bass almost like John Wetton sound. And I also noticed that Phil is drumming like a man possessed. Pretty much for the entire 2 hours. Like this is Phil's show.
Absolutely. He is so in control of the tempo and direction. I mean, that's his best drumming, honestly. 76, he was just on fire.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So, and Larry, of course, you saw the show back then, 2 days before this. And how do you feel that, I guess what I'm asking is, how do you feel the Shrine 75 performance, is it a good representation of this era of the band to you guys? And that's just an open floor question.
It's what they performed. I haven't heard any bootlegs or anything like that. The only live versions of The Lamb I've heard were the ones on the new box set and on the Genesis Archive long box.
Yeah.
If you want, I can bring that in and do a show and tell of it, because I do have that here. But those are the only ones I've heard. So as far as how, that's the show that they did. They played all of them, and then they did songs for the encores, and that was it. So that was
the interesting stuff is, of course, that this band played that piece of music 104 times during that tour. I mean, they played the album completely. They sort of made the album to work live. I mean, many of the great albums we talk about, concept albums we talk about. I mean, The Who did live versions of Quadrophenia, which they had really problems with because they played the tapes. They never played a complete Tommy. They played 90% of Tommy. I think Jethro Tull altered Thick as a Brick and
extended it.
Yeah, and it extended it to, it's very interesting. We can talk about that at another show. But you also had The Dark Side of the Moon, of course. But The Dark Side of the Moon was a different beast from start to finish. This is an album that really, they play a stage version of this album, and they actually pull it off 104 times during that tour. And it's just fantastic that this band does this. I mean, think about them, how they grew out of, if you go back to the 1969 band that makes this sort of the first album, which is a mere pop group, and then goes into this progressive thing. And 5 years later, it's just 5 years between Trespass and this.
Yeah,
they are pulling this off in a major scale.
Totally.
And it's fascinating how well they developed from that, how this band developed in such a short time, and how well they actually performed it. I mean, they are perfectionists. I mean, that's why we get the overdubs, and that's why they want to tinker with it. But it's also that they could pull it off. It's just fascinating.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, because it's not an easy feat to do that with all the costumes, and it's done in 1975, so it's not done in modern times.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about the slides. They did have slides on this thing. They actually worked very hard to make it a multimedia concept. And that's so cool. That's so cool, being so early in that sort of thing, right? That's what fascinates me. I mean, it's really, I mean, the album in itself it's an interesting production because it's an outlier in the Genesis catalog, I would say, because it's heavier, it's funkier, it's very much improvised.
Yeah.
So it's more like it's more like an extension of, let's say we start with the musical box, then we have Supper's Ready, and now we have 90 minutes of music.
Yeah.
So it's all one piece, or 4 pieces, as we may think of it, because for every side of the album, Pete is telling the story. So we get 4 pieces of album, 4 pieces of music here. He really tells a story before they go into side 1, side 2, and side 3, and side 4. So we get interludes where he talks about what is going to happen.
Yeah.
So that is a very interesting. I never saw the album as that, but the more I listened to this live concert, I realized that was their thinking. I mean,
it's
just
closer to like Topographic Oceans in a way.
Yeah. And that didn't work, you know. Genesis,
I can see the comments already.
If I have to be honest,
In 1973, I saw Yes perform that whole Tales of Topographic.
Yeah, I've heard it. I mean, if you're a jazz fan, of course, but I personally have a hard time listening to side 3 of that album. I have very, and I'm an avant-garde person, right? Because so, but this is a seamless sort of perform, and this opened this album up to me because I always felt I loved side 1, side 2, and side 3. Side 4 always escaped me. That's how I also feel about The Wall, for instance. The Wall works for one album, then it drifts off, in a sense. But this is another, listen to this live and and how they think about it and how they planned it makes it more accessible to me. So that's an interesting thing when you listen to a live version, because one, they pulled it off, and and secondly, they made it even better. They made it more accessible. I mean, I agree. And it works very well as a live piece of music. Yeah. So that's what I tend to think about it. I mean, the one thing we are missing here, of course, is had this happened in '85, we would have had video of this, right? We would have like Iron Maiden did with Power Slave Tour. They made a video out of it, so
the 3 Sides Live video. That Genesis did.
Of course. Yeah, they would have worked with the video, but that was so expensive back then. Yeah. And it's very interesting how Charisma worked, because the company, because as it turns out, Van der Graaf, that was on the same label, couldn't make it to make a live album, and the money was short. So Genesis took what they could, and made this was an expensive adventure for them. But the way I look at it now is it's an extension of what happened with Musical Box, then Supper's Ready, and then we get this 90-minute piece of music. This is an interesting thing. The development of that.
Yeah, and I think that even though this album may not be the most representative of the Peter Gabriel era, it's probably the most iconic Peter Gabriel era Genesis record.
Yeah.
For what people consider its flaws or weaknesses or whatever, I've always felt that all of that is part of the overall effect of it. You have to accept the so-called flaws with the so-called strengths. It's a whole piece. And Pontus, I like what you said about the live version making the album more accessible to you, because a lot of people say the same thing that you said about The Wall, about The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. They say that it kind of loses them by side 4. But I think that, part of that is due to the fact that if you know about the history of the album, both Peter Gabriel and Steve Hackett were dealing with interpersonal problems. With Gabriel, it was the birth of his first child, which was a complicated birth. And luckily, both wife and child made it, but there was always that possibility that they wouldn't. And in Hackett's case, he was going through a horrible, bitter divorce. And, so on the studio record, you've got, in my opinion, the emergence of the trio Genesis for the first time, the Tony Banks, Phil Collins, Mike Rutherford. That's why when you get to 3 Sides Live, they're playing so much of it. And the Slippermen stuff, the Riding the Scree stuff, they were still kind of working that out in their trio era. But the point I'm making here is that for a lot of people, the final side of the album is a bit stark and maybe isolated. Whereas I feel like on the album or the live record that we have here, it feels more like a group effort. It's more cohesive. And those songs are definitely stronger here. Now, this does kind of drift into what I wanted to talk about with the overdubs. So as I talked about before we went on air, I sat down and tried to listen to the bootleg performance of it. with the original vocals, and I made it up through back in New York City, and I had to turn it off. And that's not because Peter Gabriel was a poor singer, anything but. I think he's one of rock's greatest singers. And, I'm kind of thinking about what the comments are going to be when I'm saying this. But my point is that if you listen to the original version of this, it does not capture Peter in a very flattering light, in my opinion. He sounds very weathered vocally. You had suggested that he may have had, Adam, you'd suggested he may have had laryngitis.
Yeah. It's what I read somewhere, and it sounds like it to me. So who knows if that's really the truth or not. Yeah. But yeah, I totally agree on the original vocal of Back in New York City. He's really struggling.
He's really struggling. Yeah.
Pitch, and he'll try for a high note, and then he just squawks it. Really, it's not his best moment. So I totally understand him wanting to fix that. And did a wonderful job. I mean, I love listening to the overdub vocal on it. And, listening to, bootlegs both before the Shrine and after the Shrine, most of the time he did struggle on that song. He struggled at various parts in the show and everything, but it kind of worked because obviously he's playing a character. He's playing a Puerto Rican punk. And so, you could kind of forgive those sort of things. Maybe that's why some fans like to hear the original vocal, because they want to hear him in character. And I get that. I don't really have an issue with that. And at the same time, I like hearing his overdubs. I like hearing the cleaner, a little more mature Peter. And the thing that some people have talked about it, but not many, I love hearing it because it's like, that's almost a quiet reunion he had with Genesis.
Yeah.
And who doesn't want to hear that? You know? I love hearing that kind of thing.
And, I was kind of mentioning this prior to going on, but the idea of late 90s Gabriel trying to record apart from 75 is inherently anachronistic. And there are certain issues to my ear, like you can tell that the sound of the room doesn't exactly match the Shrine Auditorium. And this really becomes obvious whenever he's trying to blend with Phil's parts, his vocal parts, like Chamber of, or the Carpet Crawlers, especially, is one that sticks out to me. It's like, ooh, I can tell that's not quite right. And then there's other issues where he's going for like that Red Rain range, like that really kind of gravelly sound. And I think, I wish he hadn't tried to go for that. I wish he would have tried to sound more like, back in the day. But ultimately, I think the point I'm getting to here is that he was still great. I think he's still a great vocalist now. He still had it in 98. And so why not? I mean, this is not like, say, if Ian Anderson tried to overdub the Chateau de Herville sessions in 1993. That would be very difficult to accept. This is okay. And it's like, it takes a couple of songs for my ear to warm up to, but overall, I think it was a successful overdub.
I totally agree. I think it was very successful. And sorry, Pontus, I think you're going to say something.
It's also interesting, that you said that he was in character, because it also makes his older voice makes a different kind of character that could be Rail. He's acting a part. So the fact that his voice is different makes the character different. I mean, it's very interesting to say that, could that, it can transfer that part in a sense.
Absolutely.
Because we know the story of Rail. He seems to be a very, very rough kid, and he also transforms during the piece. So he might be older when
it's a good way of looking.
He finishes than when he started. So hearing it's like transformation from him, for the character as well. But it's interesting that they salvaged this, and they wanted to give the world a live performance, and they decided to make it work. So that was how that's interesting when you listen to the archives set, because as many of you know, the archive set is curated backwards. So it starts in 75
Right.
and it ends in 67. So it's a quirky one at that, but it's very interesting to see what they did to it, and hearing the original is one experience. Hearing the refurbished version is hearing another experience. You know, you hear two different ideas, so it's quite interesting.
Yeah. And I think that's a good segue to talk about, as I said, the differences between this new version and the older versions. And Larry, you wrote me this week and said, I'm comparing the new vinyl version to the CD version, and oh my goodness, it's not even close. So you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes, I was listening not for overdubs or any of that kind of stuff. I don't notice those things. I never have, unless someone points it out to me and says, on this song in this part, listen for the difference. I'm not going to notice it. When I first listened to the Shrine one on the archives one, I said, "Wow, that sounds really cool. It sounds just like the studio one, except for the vocals are a little different." But to me, Genesis music, except for something like The Waiting Room, is not improvisational music. It's completely scored out music, and that's the way you play it, and that's the way they go. Mm-hmm. But I listened to it for the sound quality, to see how the mastering and stuff on the live version of it sounds compared to the Shrine one on the Genesis Archives. When I first played Genesis Archives version, it sounded perfectly fine. It sounded great. Totally enjoyed it. Put on the vinyl version of it, and it was like, oh my gosh, listen to all that mid-range. Listen to all that stuff that's in the middle that was all missing on the CD version of it. It was like the old thing about difference between vinyl sound and CD sound. So that CD version sounded like old CD remasters in a lot of ways, where it had a kind of a tinny quality to it. But I would not have known that or recognized that until I did an A/B comparison between that and the vinyl one. But they were very, very different. Quality was immediately apparent between that.
Yeah, I got the CD version. I didn't get the vinyl version. I'm glad you said that, because I was kind of wondering how that would sound and everything. I did look. I compared I put it in Audacity, both the '98 version and the box set version, and I could tell that the box set version is more compressed. It's more kind of squashed. I don't know if this is a good visual of that.
Are you talking about the CD, the archive CD is more compressed, or the new version's more compressed?
The new version is more compressed.
Interesting. Okay.
And I think the archive does have a little bit of compression, but there's a little more breathing space. 1998, it was just before the loudness war started.
Yeah.
They beefed things up a little bit in 98, but it wasn't out of control yet. But anyway, it still sounds. The box set version sounds okay in that regard, but I guess I would say I do prefer the 98 version as far as sound goes, but there's also things about the box set version I prefer as well, so they can be kind of forgiven.
Well, the only thing I was going to mention was when I put this on, I did notice that it was a little bit aggressively mastered. And I had to turn down my AVR a little bit to kind of let my ear get used to it. But I thought all the parts were very clear. I thought it was well balanced. But what I'm really curious about, and I think this is the whole reason why you approached me, is those differences you were talking about. So would you say that there's more original parts in the 2025 version than the archive version?
Just barely, I would say.
Okay.
Because I could tell you, let's see. Back in New York City, they put in, there's one original vocal they put in. And then I was mentioning earlier, there's one overdub vocal that has very bad bleed through of the original vocal. So for my own amusement, I fixed that with stem splitting in Logic Pro and fixed it. And it sounds better to me. and going off of memory here, Steve Hackett's ending guitar on the Lamia was overdubbed, of course, on the 98 version. Sounds terrific. And on this new box set version, the original is used, the original guitar solo. And to me, it sounds fine. I like listening to that, but I think the overdub was stronger. And the original, I know he had a broken thumb that was healing at the time. So, yeah,
okay.
there's right before they went on tour. In fact, this is why they went to the U.S. first. They were supposed to do the U.K. first. I guess Steve Hackett was at a party, after party gig, and he had a wine glass in his hand, and he described it as someone talked about the band they saw. They'd be nothing without its singer. And then Hackett squeezed the glass, and it broke his thumb, and so he had to get it stitched up and everything. There was a small possibility he might lose the thumb. Thankfully, he didn't.
Yeah.
And the band were not happy with him. He wrote.
So wait a minute. This whole line about they would be nothing without the singer. This was after they knew Gabriel was going to leave.
No, this was before.
Okay.
Actually,
this was before. Okay.
Yeah, and he just tensed up basically. And I can't. Alex Harvey, I think that was the gig that he saw, the Alex Harvey band.
Okay.
Just hit my mind. So yeah, he got stitched up, and they had to cancel the December UK tour, and I might be off on my months a little bit, but they started in the US first, like right before, like 2 days before the album had come out, and we all know that history, and it's amazing they pulled that off.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So, if you were to pick one, you would pick the archive set over this new version, or
it goes back and forth. You see, I probably at the moment would pick the new version just because of what they did with it. And I don't know why they keep calling the new version the remaster. I'm here to tell you it's a remix. I mean, bringing up Phil's vocals on backing vocals on the Carpet Crawlers, you can't do that on a remaster. That's a and so I like a lot of the remix for those reasons alone. But I don't discard the 98 version. There's times I just want to listen to that, and that's what I got after my senior year in high school, and I have a lot of warm memories attached to that. And it's hard to believe we're this far along since 98. But there you go.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That was such a revelation when that box came out, because, I mean, let's face it, it was a year after Calling All Stations. And
right after.
And right after that. And they sort of went down in the, it was the first time they went down into the archives and did anything. Yeah. So it was quite a revelation that all that stuff really existed. I mean, it's really interesting. So hearing that, and you won't. I mean, I will always keep that box because it's so. It's perfect for its time. It was one of those. It was one of those must-haves when it came out.
Definitely.
Right?
That's the archives you're talking about?
Yeah, the archives. Yeah, the long box.
We were talking about the encores.
We need to talk about those. Yes.
Right. And on the encores, they used Stephen Taylor, who did brilliant engineering work with Bill Bruford in the late 70s. I admire the effort he did here, although, in my opinion, they didn't come out the way they perhaps should have, because you can hear a lot of feedback on those encores and everything. So I replaced those tracks for my own amusement. I found a lossless version. I can't remember the group that put it out. TM Music Productions or something like that. They literally grabbed a lossless broadcast, a FM broadcast of the show, and it's not the complete show. They just did Anyway, and then It, and the encore. And so I spliced that in. That sounds a lot better to me.
Yeah.
And I wish Genesis would have done that kind of route, but it's okay. I understand why they went the route that they did. Although I do wish they would have used the live version for it on the current box, not the studio version again.
Yeah, we do need to address that. So they used the studio version of it and replaced the vocals and the guitars on.
I think it's just
98.
vocal on it. Yeah,
it's
right.
just
They
vocal?
used the 98.
Okay.
They used the 98 version, which is literally the studio recording that we all know with 98 or 95 Peter vocals whenever he recorded them. And yeah, everything else should be the same.
And as you explained prior, that was because the multi-tracks ran out, but they had a board tape, right?
Yeah, there's a board tape that should have it on it. And yeah, so they should have been able to use it. Why they didn't, I don't know. Maybe Peter and or Tony just couldn't, they couldn't let go of the way it sounded originally. And Peter is squawking quite a bit on it. So, and it's hard to hear his vocals sometimes. So maybe that's the reason. I don't know.
Yeah. And in talking about the overdubs, I'm rather surprised at how many times you said squawking, how many times they left in some pretty squawky vocal takes, even in the overdubs. Like, it feels like they weren't necessarily searching for perfection with the overdubs, but going for a live feel.
Like there's in the song anyway, for instance, there's a lyric that Peter flubs, time to meet the chef. This is in the beginning of the song, and he sings on the archive, time to meet the fish. And they left that one in, so that was good. So yeah, there's some mistakes that are left in there. There's still some, it still feels like a live concert to me. I guess that's another reason I'm not bothered by the overdubs. It's not to, I look at it as it's not meant to be perfectionistic. It's meant to make it sound bearable.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It got me air drumming in the middle of musical box. It really got me air drumming because I really felt a presence there, you know, and that's what I take from this recording or from this gig is how tight the rhythm section were. I mean, it really it's sometimes sloppy, but it's sloppy good. It's in the moment, right? You can.
It's a good way of putting it. I like that. Yeah, because it's in the moment, and you can feel that. All right, well, we do it the second time, so it works, and it has an energy that I feel is fantastic, and that you know. This band could rock when they wanted to, you know, and all that sort of. Because I was thinking about this, all the musical box is very much like an exercise in release and suspension, right? That's true. It's all about, you know, playing a short. It's first you play a silent part, then you play a loud part, and then you switch between those two, and you have this dramatic sort of ending. And it really comes through on this live set because you can also feel that now they've done this 90 minutes of, and they letting loose. And you can really feel it like dum 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 when they do that sort of dum dum in the middle section. They really rock.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like, and just since we're talking about the encores here, so Stephen W. Taylor, who's a fantastic engineer, as Adam, you had said that he'd worked with Bill Bruford. He also worked with people like Rush and Jethro Tull, like in the late '80s. And he's done a wonderful job going back and remixing the catalogs of bands like Camel, Hawkwind, Van der Graaf Generator, and most recently the Peter Hamill box set, which is excellent. And I highly recommend it. I need to review it for the channel. It's just so massive. So anyway, back to my point here.
And the Hawkwind stuff.
And the Hawkwind. Yeah. His Hawkwind stuff is amazing. So back to my point here. It's clear to me that Stephen used some sort of AI separation technology to pull the vocals out and to make them more audible, which is on paper, I think is a wonderful idea. But in execution, I think this is an example of the limitations of the technology because you can hear Peter Gabriel's vocals much better, I guess, than maybe they were originally. But the issue is you have all this artifacting that goes along with it. There's feedback issues. There's like little squeals and stuff that kind of, to me, indicate like, ooh, something's been played with. But the vocal parts aside, I actually was rather glad that they were there because, as Pontus was saying, the performance is on fire. And I've heard like 500,000 different versions of the musical box, as we all have. And from a performance standpoint, I found this one to be one of the more compelling ones. And
especially when he goes into now.
Yeah.
Screams it. I love it.
I do too. And I think that it's possible also, we were talking about how this is a much more aggressive work for them. They were kind of leaving behind the pastoral image of albums like Foxtrot, Selling England by the Pound, Nursery Crime. And, with back in New York City, they're almost predicting punk rock. It's like another few months around the corner by 1975. So I definitely think some of that rail energy was kind of being transmitted into the Watcher of the Skies, and especially the musical box performances.
Most certainly.
There's nothing very pastoral about that. I mean, that's energetic as anything that Genesis ever recorded, as far as I can say.
Absolutely.
Well, I like how.
It's like classical.
There you go.
Absolutely. I like that they went heavy with the Lamb, and I don't know if you know this, but it was between Peter's idea of Rail and the Lamb versus Mike Rutherford's idea of doing now based on the story The Little Prince, which I actually have not read that story, but Mike described it as a cartoon for grown-ups, basically, or like a children's story for grown-ups. And if you look at the imagery on the We Can't Dance album, it kind of relates a little bit to Little Prince. That much I know. And I'm glad Peter kind of put his foot down and said, no, that's a mistake. We need to go heavy.
Yeah. I think I heard a quote from him that he could tell a change was in the air. He could tell that something was about to shift. And, Gabriel was always on the leading edge of whatever was happening. Like even in the early 80s, I feel like Genesis were kind of following him. Intruder.
Somewhat, I can see that.
With Phil Collins, of course, on drums. And then what happens next? But, Mama, just a couple of years down the line. So I definitely think that he was always kind of leading them, even when he wasn't in the band.
Right. That makes sense. And Peter's always been a visionary, always wanting to do what you would not think of doing. He'll think of it.
He's one of the rare examples of an avant-garde artist who was popular, who knew how to make pop music.
Yeah, absolutely. And also the fact that, Brian Eno was involved with the Lamb,
right?
Makes it a sort of bridge between what he was doing with all those albums. I mean, Another Green album, Another Green World, and especially the
Before and After Science.
Taking Tiger Mountain and all that sort of the bleak sort of tapestry that those albums have, and the Roxy Music stuff had before that. And it's very interesting that we have these three major contributors, and that's a story for another video. But it's the Fripp, Eno, Gabriel sort of axis, or even Bowie axis that leads this music into another direction, into more like a bleaker, darker field, if I can describe it that way. And Lamb fits very well into that.
Yeah.
Because it's a dark story. It's death. It's streets of New York. It's all this sort of a bit noir thing, right? And it's also there's British stupidity in it, like the Slipperman stuff. But
I find that hilarious.
Yeah,
I always have found that
absolutely.
hilarious.
Absolutely, especially when he reads out the lyric before they play the song.
Yeah,
and that's just fantastic.
That's a great story. I love that.
And if you go back and listen to that, listen to the introduction to the fourth segment, and you will have a great time. You will have a great time.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's very sort of it's definitely a tale for grown-ups.
There's I just thought of this actually with the story that you just mentioned, Pontus. There was, as I understand it, and Larry, you could probably confirm this. The story that has Slipperman and meeting death, which is also terrific, appears at the end of Chamber of 32 Doors on the vinyl. But on the CD portion of the box set, it doesn't appear at all. But wait, I got more. It does appear on the downloads.
Yeah, right. Because I listened to this in my car, and it's on the streaming version. I thought, where is that?
Yeah, it's on the download, this is one thing about the box set I was very annoyed with. I went to the link and put in the code that was given on the set, and it wouldn't work for the longest time. I think, or at least it felt like the longest time. Somehow I got it on like day 3 or day 4, and I was like, oh, thank goodness. And of course the code only works once, so we're told.
Yeah.
And they could have done that a lot better.
Yeah, there's the story about the third side, and it's cut from the CD version. Also, there was a download code. I don't know if it was included with the vinyl version or not, but I know a lot of people had difficulty getting that stuff. I didn't even try. To be completely honest with you, I was disappointed with this box set in a lot of ways. And I don't know, Adam, if you're a multi-channel person, if you have a 5.1 or Dolby Atmos.
Oh, yeah, we didn't talk about that at all. Yes, I do have an Atmos setup here.
Yeah, and I don't want to retread much of that, but because I did an hour-long discussion about everything that's wrong with it.
Yeah, and I saw that discussion, and I agree with what you said. The only thing I will say about it is it makes me wonder if they released the wrong files.
Yeah.
Like if they were doing a rough draft or whatever, and somehow those files got sent instead of the final. Because I sat there on a few songs, particularly the transition from Back in New York City to Hairless Heart, it just stops. And then it starts again.
There's a gap.
How could Peter and Tony miss that? And I don't think they did. That's just my theory. I can't prove any of that, but that's
what I said on my video too, is that they needed an extra layer of quality control on this.
Yeah.
Like they missed somewhere along the line, and then the fact that they made us wait like 9 months for the thing to even come out. It's like they had plenty of opportunity to go back and check that.
It was frustrating, but I instantly thought Peter must be taking his time. Sounds like Peter Gabriel we know and love.
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, because I don't have the box. I listen to the files on Cobus.
Okay,
and everything was on there. The storytelling was there. What happens is that you get it, and it fades out like the album,
right?
And then you get the 2 tracks live, but you do get the storytelling between side 2 and side 3. Mm-hmm. You even get him saying, because I compared it with the radio stream and the radio thing, right? And you hear him saying, talking. You hear him say that, and on the bootleg, it's actually shortened a bit, but here it's longer.
Right.
You hear him go through the whole thing. So that makes reference to Phil Collins on his left side and all that. It's very interesting. My final word on it is that it is a live version, and you're on stage with them, or you're close to the stage with them, and you're on a night with them, and you're experiencing this music, and it really moves you in another direction than the album would have made.
Yeah.
I agree.
I feel like it feels darker and more psychedelic than the album.
Yeah.
I agree with that too.
Impetus to listen to the live one again. Normally, I don't listen to live stuff very much at all. I kind of stick with studio ones. But after all this discussion, I'm going to go back and give that another earful.
Awesome. Well, hey guys,
I highly recommend everybody to listen to it on whatever medium you can find, because it's worth hearing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
Yeah. Despite any of the criticisms that we've made of it, asking why did they make this choice and not another, it's still a great listen, and I do recommend it to everybody watching the video. But guys, I want to thank you for joining me today. This has been a lot of fun. Adam, especially, I want to thank you for reaching out and saying, "Hey, let's do this," because I feel like this was educational for me. Like, we learned so much. Like, hey, the story is different on side 3. What happened? Why is it on some versions and not on others? And I learned so much about the different releases of this. And I feel like it's time for me to go check out the archive set. So I want to thank again Adam. I want to thank Larry. And I want to thank Pontus. And for those of you who are watching at home, be sure to leave us a comment. How do you feel about this performance? Do you prefer it with overdubs? Do you prefer the original bootleg version? Because I know that some people like that authenticity, and I can respect that. And just any kind of general feedback I would very much appreciate. Also, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. In the new year, I've got lots of stuff planned. Probably going to be talking about more Atmos and surround stuff, but I'm hoping to do more of these kind of things that are kind of more broad interest topics. So keep an eye out for that. The only way to make sure you don't miss any of my updates is by subscribing to the channel. But until then, I want to wish all of you guys a happy holiday and
same to you,
and prosperous 2026.
Sure.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.